Hello Nikon fans. I know I normally say Leica fans, but today we're talking about a Nikkor 50mm prime lens. But it's not this 50mm lens, it's this 50mm lens. This lens will fit your Leica cameras and it is rangefinder coupled. It'll even fit Leica Barnett cameras like this absolute beauty. Okay, so today we're looking at the Nikkor S.C 5cm or 50mm f1.4 lens. There are a few different versions, so before you jump on eBay, be a bit careful because they don't all fit Leica cameras. This is the third video from my model shoots in Poland, and I'll give you all the spec you need to know, example photos, the character of the lens, how much the lens costs, and whether or not I recommend this lens. But you can probably tell from my little smirk, this lens is amazing and I will recommend this lens. It's one of the best 50mm lenses I've got, and with the risk of upsetting Leica purists, this lens is actually better than Leica lenses from the same period. Let's jump in. Hi guys, Matt here from MrLeica.com. I'm a UK Leica portrait and wedding photographer. If you want to see more photos from the model shoots in Poland, check out the first and second videos on the M240 and the Leica Summicron 50mm f2.DR. If I remember correctly, I think I mentioned the Nikkor 50 1.4 in my 2021 Best Lenses of the Year video. This lens was released in the late 1950s and in production until the late 1960s. It was made in both like a screw mount or LTM mount, but also Nikon S Mount. Nikon S Mount means for the Nikon rangefinder cameras. Now there are some differences. The optical formula is the same. Both lenses have a 43E filter, which means a standard 43 filter will fit. The optical formula is 7 elements in 3 groups, and mine has 12 aperture blades. The LTM mount is the obvious choice for Leica users because it's very easy to obviously mount onto screw mount or M mount cameras via an adapter. It's very similar to my video that I did on the Nikkor 50 f2 HC lens. The one I've got here is actually a Nikon S Mount. So Nikon S, the S stands for Nikon S Mount, the C means coated. So these are single coated lenses, and as you can see from mine has like the blue coating finish. It makes it quite a pretty looking lens. Now the LTM version has a rangefinder coupled close focus distance of 1 meter, but it has an uncoupled macro version or close-up version of 0.5 meters, but it's uncoupled. So you'd have to guesstimate your focusing unless you're using it on, say, a mirrorless camera, such as my Leica SL or Leica CL. The Nikon S version should focus as close as 0.9 meters. I say should, because if you then mount it onto a Amadeo M2 Nikon S adapter, it then focuses to 0.7 meters. That makes it as good in terms of close focusing as modern lenses such as the Summilux 50 1.4, for example. I've done a video on these adapters. They're not easy to find and they are expensive, but if you can find one, that'll give you the ultimate solution for close focusing, shallow depth of field, more bokeh, all that kind of stuff. When it comes to weight, the LTM version is going to weigh more than the Nikon S Mount version, because if you've not seen my Nikon S2 video, they work the same as the Kiev rangefinder cameras and Contax rangefinder cameras, where the helicoid is built into the front of the camera, meaning the lens is then smaller and lighter because they've got no helicoid attached. That means you then need the expensive adapter with the helicoid built in, which is why the adapters are expensive. Because of that, the LTM version weighs 276 grams compared to only 152 grams for the Nikon S version. Then you've obviously got to add the weight of the adapter, so they're probably much for much. There were a few different variations released over the production period. You can get them in silver and in black, and then if you can find a really rare one, there's one called an Olympic edition, released in the 2000s. I think those have been mega expensive, but if you've got one of those, you probably know that you've got a very nice lens. Okay, we're at the character of this lens. So if I bring up some example photos, we can have a look. This is shot wide open. It looks not particularly sharp, but then when you zoom in, it's actually really sharp, just hidden by the soft glow. Here's another example, looks blurry. Zoom in, it's actually sharp. Here's the lens shot wide open, and doing like a mirror selfie using the EVF, and that's at f2. See how it's sharpened up? Here it is on film wide open at 1.4. See, there is some good sharpness, and here it is at f2, even sharper with more contrast and depth. How does it compare against Leica lenses from the same period? Here's the Nikkor again, this time on my M4P, wide open. Here's a Summerit from the same period, so it's got a much softer glow look until you shoot it at f2. Here's the Nikkor again as comparison, wide open. And here's the Summilux wide open as a benchmark. So for my testing, it's usually sharp at 1.4 and a really great performer f2, f2.8 in the center. What about the edges? As you can see here, wide open, the edges are soft and mushy at 1.4. Now at f2, look how much it just cleaned up. It's a much improved f2, but the edges are still soft. f2.8, again, it's cleaned up further still. The corners are still soft. f4, the extreme corners are still soft. You probably want to use f8 to get any kind of corner sharpness. Okay, vignetting, as you can see, heavy vignetting, wide open at 1.4. Slightly improved f2, then by 2.8, and f4, it's much better. What about flare? Here's some examples of the lens flare you may see shooting this lens into the sun, but for normal use I didn't really see a problem. Okay, what about halation around points of light? You can see here there's like glow or blooming or whatever the correct term is around points of light, but it can be very pretty for portraits, for like a mist filter look. This is most notable at 1.4 and it cleans up a lot at f2 and again f2.8 as you stop down. Okay, what about colours? As you know, I usually shoot black and white, but here's a few samples of the colours. Some people say they really enjoy the colours from this lens. You can see it's quite a saturated look because of the higher contrast. You can also see the bokeh characteristics of the lens wide open here. Some would say it's maybe a bit nervous. It's got the highlighted bokeh bore edges, like onion rings, I think some people call it. As you stop down to f2, they become a bit more smoother, I would say, and then by 2.8, they're smoother still and kind of round shape. Okay, let's have a look now at some digital photos shot with this lens. These are shot with the M240 in the studio last year when I first got the lens. Some very fun shots. And then these are from the latest Poland trip. You may recognize these from maybe the M240 video, perhaps some of them. So this is shooting the lens wide open at 1.4, and I added a mist filter for some of these, so it's 1.4 plus mist filter, so like extreme diffusion. In the dark it's better for me at f2. It really cleans up at f2. You get the better contrast. And there's some examples shooting at night with the M240. And this was a window shot walking back after the shoot late at night. Okay, well, how about on film? Here's a colour photo example with my Bessa R2C. Here's an example using the lens on the Leica 2F in Warsaw. And then all the other photos now are going to be shot with the Leica M3. So most of these are in Poland. These are on a previous trip to Poland. You may recognise some of the faces. And I find the M3 is the best camera for this lens because I can shoot at 0.7 meters and I've got a magnified viewfinder to accurately focus. Okay, and these are again on the M3 from the latest shoot. You may wonder if I storyboard or plan all these vintage looking photo shoots, and in fact it's just the girls turning up in cool clothes. I try and help by asking them to bring certain clothes, and then I just give them an old camera, and then the rest just happens in the moment. I don't plan or script anything. It's just all happens as it comes to me in my head. So I must say a huge thanks to the girls. As a model photographer, I really am only as good as the models I photograph. Okay, so those are the photos. Are you impressed? Are you already on eBay? When it comes to the prices do vary quite a lot. The LTM version is much more desirable because everybody wants lenses for the M mount, which is an easier mount to adapt to. So those are generally more expensive than the Nikon S ones. If you want a good deal with a Nikon S Mount lens, buy it with a Nikon S rangefinder camera, and then you normally get both together at quite a decent price. That's how I got mine. Can I recommend this lens? I would say absolutely. This is one of my favourite lenses at the moment. If I shoot it at f2, it's seemingly as sharp as my sharpest Leica lenses and say Voigtlander lenses, but you get all the benefits of the added character and the fall off at the edges, which is obviously amazing for portraits. Talking of portraits, if you've not yet got my free ebook, if you're interested in portraiture and model photography, link in the description below. I will do a full written blog post with full rare sample photos because I've got more photos that I can share in this video. If you hit the link below to the blog, sign up to the blog with your email address, and then you'll be notified when I do that post. If you enjoyed this video, please smash the like button. Please subscribe if you've not already done so. It will really help me out. Lastly, as always, a huge thanks to my amazing Patreon. I will add the Nikkor 50mm lens to my 50mm playlist. So if you want to see more 50mm lenses, you can see that here next.